Sup, it's me again, and this is another episode of Rant Time. I know I've been away for a while. I didn't do much Rant Time lately, mainly because I'm still experimenting with different formats to do it in. But yeah, Rant Time has a new format now, so you'll see a live recording on my desktop, which I can then scroll through. So it's like stepping you through a PowerPoint, and I'm gonna criticize, I'm going to praise wherever I go. So you can see a point, I can highlight a point as we go through this. It's a new format. I'm still trying it out, but this will be the format if there's no changes that will be going forward. So this is episode 13 of Rant Time. Let's take a look at today's topic. So as you can see, um, the iPod. Yep. You think Apple forgot about that? They're gonna prove you wrong right there. So today, Apple silently updated the iPod lineup. So the first thing the headliner thing was the new colors now. So they ditched the 7 colors in favor of 5. So they used to have a spectrum of colors, but now they only have 5. Uh, So it's space gray, which is this one, and then gold, and silver, and pink and blue. So these are the 5 colors. No matter which iPod you choose, these are the 5 colors. Of course, there's also product red, which is a Apple exclusive red color for iPod. So the proceeds would go to supporting fighting the fight for AIDS in Africa. But the main headliner, the headline to the headline, is the new iPod Touch. Now, the new iPod Touch is really a departure from previous iPod Touches because, number one, it didn't actually have a press conference to load everyone's mind down with. And number two, um, it's a silent update. It's not really much of an update. They didn't, you know, put on billboard says, yeah, we have a new update. It's just very silent. I think if you don't seek out the iPod Touch 6th generation, you just walk into an Apple store just looking for an iPod without actually paying attention to much of the advertising, much of the YouTube videos that might be going around, or news outlets in this instance, you might not notice that it's a new iPod since it looks the same. It's just the internal hardware that's different. So let's take a look at what's different in the new iPod Touch. Now, as I've said, the hardware wise, it's basically identical. So let's take a look at the tech specs, which is all the difference here. So, first of all, you have new capacity, which is 128 gigs, which is $399. And for those of you who like large libraries of music, this might be a good option since a lot of people dig the iPod Classic because of the large capacity. So I think they're going to appreciate this $399 option, which gives you 128 gigs. Still not as much as the previous iPod Classic, but hey, at least you have more storage space. So the size and weight is basically the same. The display is identical to the iPhone 5 and 5S display. Now, one point that is really surprising is the decision to adopt the A8 processor. Now, previously, they've went with, so for example, the iPod Touch 4th generation used the A4. The iPod Touch 5th generation used the A5. So, for normal people, they'll assume it used the A6, which is not the case here. The A8 chip, which is used in the iPhone 6, is also used in the iPod Touch 6th generation. Wow. I mean, you would think that Apple was trying to gimp the iPod Touch, especially when the iPod Touch 5th generation came out. It's actually using a year-old chipset, so it's using the A8, and a lot of people have been reporting that the iPhone 6 Plus, compared to the iPhone 6, runs a bit slower since there's more pixels to drive. This even has less pixels. As I've said, the iPhone 6 has a 750p display, while the iPod Touch has a 640p display, also at 16:9. So it's gonna run a bit faster compared to the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. So it's a 64-bit processor along with the motion coprocessor, which finally puts the health app to use. Yeah, so it's basically the heart of the iPhone 6, but there's so much more to the story. For example, the f2.4 aperture, iPhone 5 camera, GIMP to the customer. There's also 120 frames per second slow-mo video. The other is not really that important. So basically, very iPhone 5 and 5SE specs. So 2.2 aperture. So smaller aperture means more light going in, so your colors look better. But I'm kind of weirded out by this decision. The asset camera, which is the rear camera, which is the one that shoots outsides, has a smaller aperture, which means less light can go in than the rear-facing camera. Kind of weird. So basically the same thing here. So the hardware is largely unchanged. Okay, that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's just the same iPod, but with different specs. It might not be the best choice for a lot of people, but I think for those of you who enjoy a very iOS experience, I think you're gonna like this. But since it's rant time, there is something I don't like about it. For example, number one, why Apple, you haven't brought Touch ID to the iPod Touch? Okay, I understand this is like an iPhone, an iPad thing, where like their data is more important. So, recommend the Touch ID sensor. But there's no Touch ID here anywhere, especially when back in the day in 2011 when Siri came out. And then in 2012, they ported it over to the iPod. Especially, this is an iPod, quote unquote, 3 years in the making. There's more issues that I'm going to talk about later. And the Touch ID technology, which is 2 years old. And they still haven't ported it over to the iPod Touch. And what the hell is going on with the design? I mean, you could have at least tweaked it a little. Not even a little. 3 years in the making. Come on, guys. You gotta admit, like, well, there's one thing they actually ditch. I actually noticed right now, is that the loop is missing. On the iPod Touch 5th generation, you have a little silver button you can push out. It's gone. So, hardware-wise, well, from the outside, they actually strip you of one more feature, so it no longer has a loop, no longer has a button. I only realize this now. So no button, no more loop. There's no strap you can use that loop with. And yeah, that's the iPod, guys. And they screwed up with the volume buttons. It should be over this side, but other than that, just weird. I mean, it's a bit oddball about this iPod. Maybe it's just like a spec upgrade. But I've grown to not expect much from the iPod line. So it's every time it's a spec upgrade. But there's good points, a lot of good points. I commend the adoption of the most powerful processor Apple has put out. I appreciate it actually puts out slow-mo and try to make the camera better, so it's now 8 megapixels. It's a good thing. But the bad thing is, they took out the loop, which some of you might not like, but I'm actually a huge fan of the loop. Number two, since the 5th generation was released in 2012, the 6th generation came in 2015. There's not really much of a surprise here. I mean, the 4th to 5th generation was a radical leap. It gone from a really scratch-prone stainless steel back to the aluminum back, and it hasn't changed. Well, it's not okay. I'm not saying you must change, but like, come on, 3 years and a spec upgrade. That's really disappointing. But overall, I'm pleased with it. I'm okay, fine with it. But I think there's more to be done with this new iPod. It's a good thing that they still managed to put out the iPod since there's declining sales figures in there. But the bad thing is, you could have done a lot more with the iPod Touch 6th generation. It's not just a spec upgrade. Come on, guys. Just give us a little redesign. Give us something new to look at. Alright, that has been another episode of Rant Time. Please hit the subscribe button if you liked the content. I don't always put out Apple content, even though the videos might be speaking a different tone, but trust me, I put out lots of different content, and next month will be our channel's 5th anniversary, so yay for that. So this stupid piece of crap has been online for half a decade. Wow. Okay, I'll see you guys then. I hope you enjoyed the new format. I hope you enjoyed the new episode, and I will see you guys later. Well, until someone forced me to make a new video. Until then, bye.